Welcome to the official YouTube channel of J.K. Jones, where listeners can enjoy romance audiobooks for free. Please like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest releases. This audiobook is protected by copyright law. No part of it may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including recording or electronic methods, without the prior written consent of the author. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. To support ongoing content creation, consider joining the Patreon. Every contribution helps keep the stories alive.
The Bear. Karn Ulvath, Thren Vorak. Blood awakened, soul unmoored. It seized me before the sun dared rise, twisting sinew and memory, ripping my body into its truer shape. Bones shattered and reformed, fur burst from skin, and the howl that left my throat was not a man's. It was a king's, it was a beast's, it was mine. They called it penance. I called it a prison. Each night I roamed the mountain, naked, cursed, forgotten. Each dawn I woke in blood and frost, no closer to redemption. But that was before him, before the boy with the storm in his eyes and the child in his belly, before Mpreg returned.
Prologue. Watch where you're going, loser. I nearly dropped the tray in my hands. The coffee cups rattled as I struggled to steady them, my belly pressing hard against the tight apron. 7 months pregnant, and he doesn't even know who the father is. What a joke. Sandra whispered to her friend at the counter, loud enough for me to hear. Her words stung, but it wasn't just the pregnancy. I knew why she hated me. It was because I got the best tips. People liked me, even when I was barely holding myself together. The other waiters smirked and snickered behind their hands. One bumped me with a grin, saying, "Maybe if Terry paid more attention, he wouldn't keep dropping everything." I swallowed hard and kept moving, pretending their words didn't cut through me like ice. From across the diner, my boss's eyes narrowed in frustration. His disappointment hit harder than any insult. When my tray slipped from my hands, shattering cups and coffee spilled across the floor, the room seemed to go silent for a moment. "That's it," my boss said. "Pack your things. You're fired." I wanted to argue, to explain, to beg for one more chance. But the weight of failure was too heavy. I nodded, heart sinking, gathering my things with shaking hands. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Chapter 1. Terry. They were going to fire me. I knew it the second the tray tipped. Knew it when the glasses hit the tile and exploded like crystal grenades. I didn't even flinch, just stared down at the mess. Sandra smirked as she swept past. "Oops," she said, bumping my shoulder with just enough force to make it obvious. The witch wore 3-inch heels on a double shift, like she was auditioning for a funeral-themed erotic movie. "You all right, Terry?" one of the waiters called. His voice was syrupy with fake concern. "That kid kicked too hard?" A snort rippled through the kitchen. Laughter followed, not even trying to be subtle. I crouched slowly, my lower back screaming in protest. 7 months pregnant and still trying to pretend I could keep up. I fished glass shards off the floor while the world buzzed around me, my belly straining against my uniform like a balloon someone forgot to tie down. "Look at him," someone muttered. "Doesn't even know who the dad is." "Maybe it's one of ours," another voice cracked. "We should take bets." More laughter. The thing about shame is you get used to it. After a while, it's just background noise, like the hum of the fridge or the clink of forks on ceramic. You stop noticing. I dumped the broken glass into the bin and stood up too fast. My vision swam. No one offered a hand. Of course they didn't. Sandra leaned over the counter, filing her nails. "You might want to waddle faster, sweetheart. Table 6 has been waiting since Clinton was in office." "Thanks, Barbie," I said, deadpan. "How's the campaign against empathy going?" She blinked, smiled like I was a roach she hadn't finished killing. That was the moment my boss stormed out of the back, red-faced, sweating, shirt untucked like someone had yanked him out of a nap. "Office, now." I followed, the walk of shame made longer by the eyes drilling into my back. The door slammed shut behind us. "You've dropped plates 3 times this week, showed up late twice. I can't keep covering for you." "Then don't," I said. My voice was flat, tired. "Go ahead, fire the pregnant loser. Bonus points if you do it in front of everyone." He hesitated, like he wanted me to beg, but I didn't have the energy to perform humility for him. "Fine," he said. "You're done." I left without another word. Out on the sidewalk, the wind hit me like a slap. I wrapped my arms around my stomach, not protectively, more like I was trying to hold myself in. I'd been right. They fired me. And somehow, it still felt like a surprise. My chest ached, tight and hollow. Not just because of the job, not even the money. It was the way they looked at me, like I was a joke that went on too long. A walking cautionary tale. The guy who couldn't even stay in college, let alone figure out where his baby came from. I stood there for a long time, watching buses pass. I pulled out my phone, stared at the cracked screen. No messages, of course, because I was a mess. Weak, broken, disposable, and worse, pregnant. The walk home was long, and the baby kicked like he was trying to crawl out of me. Each step felt like dragging lead. My shoes were soaked from the slush, and my thighs ached from the extra weight. A kid on a scooter passed me and muttered, "Damn," under his breath. I flipped him off. By block 3, my fingers were going numb. My hoodie didn't zip over my stomach anymore, so I had to stretch it down with one hand like I was holding a damn beach ball hostage. Some lady asked if I needed a cab. I told her I preferred walking. She looked at me like I was choosing to suffer, like pain wasn't already stitched into every minute of my day. It was dark by the time I reached my street. The apartment building loomed like a stack of cigarette-stained teeth. I lived on the 3rd floor, no elevator, of course. Because God doesn't hate the rich. Inside, the hall smelled like piss and someone's failed attempt at spaghetti sauce. I stepped over a pizza box and climbed the stairs, wheezing like a 70-year-old asthmatic. I opened the door to find my dad exactly where I left him. On the couch in his stained boxers, scratching himself with one hand and scrolling his phone with the other. "Hey, deadbeat," he said, eyes still on the screen. "Pick up any shifts." Got fired. Figures. That was it. No surprise, no concern, no follow-up. My mom sat in the recliner, eyes glued to the wall. Not the TV, the wall. She'd been like that for months. The lights were on, but nobody was home. Just a shell flickering under fluorescent buzz. I stepped over a half-empty bag of chips and made for the back room. My room, if you could call it that. It used to be the laundry closet before I threw out the washer and jammed a mattress against the wall. I sat down hard. The baby shifted, like he was reminding me he existed. Or maybe he was protesting how pathetic his life already looked. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands cradling my face. It hit me all at once. No job, no school, no money, no clue who the father was. A baby on the way, and a home that barely tolerated my existence. I was nothing, worse than nothing. I was an inconvenience wrapped in skin. And if I vanished tomorrow, my dad would just ask who was going to clean the toilet now. I hated this feeling, this raw, itchy hopelessness that settled into my chest like mold. But it was familiar, comfortable in its own way. Like maybe I deserved it. And if anyone disagreed, well, they weren't around to say so. I didn't cry. Not at first. I stared at the cracked paint on the wall above my mattress and tried to remember when my life started unraveling. College, high school, before that. I couldn't remember. Couldn't find the moment when everything shifted sideways and I woke up like this, knocked up and ignored. And no one could tell me how. The first time I went to the clinic, they made me take the test 3 times. A nurse dropped her clipboard. The doctor blinked like I'd spit in his coffee. Incredibly rare, he'd said. Genetic anomaly. They called it a carrier gene, a mutation, a freak lottery ticket that gave men the ability to conceive. Lucky me. No answers, no science, just awkward silence and a paper bag full of prenatal vitamins. I rubbed my stomach, hating it, loving it, terrified of it. Every week I went in for a checkup, and every week I got the same glassy-eyed stares. Like I was a lab experiment in sweatpants. Like I should be tagged and tracked and thrown into a government van. I curled up on the mattress, knees to my chest, shaking. I didn't remember what happened that night, not the one that started this. Faces blurred, time blurred. All I had were fragmented memories of hands, heat, maybe lips. A hotel room? A stranger? A dream? How could I be this far along and know nothing? What kind of idiot didn't remember the moment they got pregnant? I pulled a pillow over my face and screamed into it. And that's when the phone rang. My crusty old Nokia buzzed weakly on the windowsill like it was surprised it still had a purpose. I answered without looking. What? Wow, came Sarah's voice, chipper and unapologetically loud. That's how you greet your only friend? I sat up, rubbing my eyes. What do you want? Well, since someone can't hold a job and refuses to let me Venmo them grocery money, I don't even have a bank account, Sarah. I found you work. I blinked. What kind of work? Cleaning. Some rich recluse up north needs a live-in cleaner. Real remote. Big old place. He wants someone discreet and desperate. Gee, wonder why you thought of me. I'm sending the address. He pays cash. I hesitated. Is this an erotic thing? No, at least, I don't think so. The ad was vague, but I'm sure it's safe. I don't know, Sarah. Sarah laughed. Well, too bad. I already sent your name. Pack your bags. My stomach twisted, whether from nerves or the baby, I couldn't tell. I stared around my room. Dirty laundry, cracked walls, a mattress that smelled faintly of piss. Dad hadn't asked if I was okay. Mom hadn't blinked in 4 hours. A cleaning job sounded ridiculous, but it was better than being here. The cab ride had taken 2 hours longer than I thought it would, which was exactly how long it took me to develop a deep and abiding hatred for winding mountain roads, cab drivers who don't believe in brakes, and classical music on repeat. Bit far, ain't it? The driver had said halfway up, chewing gum like it owed him money. Yeah, I muttered, one hand bracing my stomach. Real scenic way to get murdered. Now we were pulling up the last gravel path, and there it was, a goddamn castle. Not a cute little manor or a rustic estate. A castle. Big, gothic, arrogant. It clung to the mountainside like it had been clawed out of the rock by something with very expensive taste and centuries of unresolved trauma. Jesus Christ, I whispered. What is this, Dracula's Airbnb? The driver didn't even blink. Want me to wait? I looked at the building, back at him. You know what? No, I'm good. He shrugged, tossed my duffel bag out of the trunk like it weighed nothing, and peeled off down the hill. I stood in the gravel, watching his taillights disappear like I'd just handed over my last chance at sanity. The air was thin and cold. My breath came out in little white puffs, and the weight of the mountain pressed in from all sides. The castle rose above me like it was watching. Cool. I adjusted my bag, rubbed my aching lower back, and started up the steps. The woman on the phone had been polite. Kind of. She had the voice of someone who drank their tea black and didn't flinch at horror movies. Full room and board, 5 months, you'll have your own space. Your pregnancy is of no concern to us. There are medical professionals available if needed. If that wasn't the most casually cryptic HR call of my life, I don't know what was. I paused at the massive oak doors, raised a hand to knock, and before I could even touch it, they creaked open. Of course they did. Because why wouldn't I be walking into a vampire video game? A tall woman in a gray suit stood on the other side, face unreadable. You must be Mr. Terry. That's what they tell me. I said, stepping inside. She gave me a once-over. Her gaze flicked briefly to my stomach, then back to my face without missing a beat. You'll be shown to your room. Orientation begins at sunset. Dinner is mandatory. I'm more of a snack for dinner kind of guy, I said. She didn't smile. Mandatory. And just like that, I was following her through cold stone halls with ceilings higher than my ambitions. The castle was quiet. Too quiet. Even my footsteps sounded nervous. My room, when we got there, was nicer than I expected. Warm, clean. A real bed. A fireplace already lit. Hell, there was even a kettle. I can live with this, I muttered, dropping my bag. Someone will fetch you when it's time, the woman said, already backing out. I was alone before I could ask her name. Or, more importantly, what the hell this place actually was. I sat on the edge of the bed, ran my fingers over the blankets. The baby kicked once, like he was unimpressed. Don't look at me like that, I said to my stomach. We're both in too deep now. Somewhere in the castle, something groaned. A door? The pipes? A soul being slowly eaten? I pulled the blankets over my legs and tried not to think about it. Chapter 2. Terry. Dinner was weird. Like, weird. Not just rich people weird. I stood behind the long, impossibly polished dining table, balancing a tray like it wasn't murdering my spine. I'd been given a uniform, black slacks, a fitted white shirt, and a vest I could barely button over my bump. The staff had insisted. Presentation matters, one of the maids had chirped. The family is very particular. Particular, sure. The moment I stepped into the dining hall, I felt it. This bone-deep pressure, like I'd walked into the jaws of something sleeping. The ceiling soared overhead, gilded and hung with chandeliers made of real antlers. Heavy tapestries lined the walls, depicting wars, feasts, and what looked like hunts. And then he walked in. Tall, polished, smiling like sin in a suit, with silver-streaked black hair slicked back, angular cheekbones, and smoky gray eyes that always seem to be hiding something. He wears gloves like secrets. I'm Lucian, he said, offering a gloved hand. Household steward, you'll report to me for all service duties. My brain shut down for a solid 5 seconds. All I could do was stare. The man was unreasonably attractive. Sharp cheekbones, eyes like smoky quartz, lips made for lying. He cocked his head. Is something wrong, Terry? No, I said quickly. You just look like you eat lesser men for brunch. He laughed, low and pleased. Only the rude ones. Great. Flirting with my boss. First day. Lucian introduced the two maids next, Anya and Marin, both pale and soft-spoken, both eyeing me like I was either a curiosity or an inconvenience. Possibly both. Anya was petite with cropped auburn hair, warm hazel eyes, and a constant smudge of dust on her cheek. She moves like a shadow, silent and precise. Marin was the opposite, curvy and broad-shouldered, with a crown of dark braids and deep-set green eyes. Her smile is rare but disarming, and she always smells faintly of bread and lavender polish. After dinner, the staff guided me through the castle, giving me a rundown of what I'd be cleaning. Everything on the east and south wings, Marin said. Bedrooms, studies, parlors, the library, all 4 lounges. 4? I blinked. Why does a family need 4 lounges? Anya smiled tightly. This family isn't like others. No kidding. We passed room after room, velvet furniture, gold thread rugs, portraits that seemed to follow me with their eyes. I dragged my fingers along the wallpaper in one hall, only to find it shredded. Massive gouges carved straight through plaster and stone. Is this normal? I asked. Lucian stopped beside me. That's the north wing, he said. You are not to enter it. Ever. There was a door at the end of the hall, old, heavy, bolted from the outside. Claw marks scored the frame, thick ones, deep enough to crack the wood. "The master sleeps there," Lucian added softly. "He only joins the household for dinner when summoned by immediate family. You will serve them and then leave." My throat went dry. "Right, totally normal, nothing suspicious here." "Of course not," Lucian said, lips curling into a smirk. "You'll do fine, Mr. Terry. You're exactly the type the family prefers." I didn't like the way he said that. As we walked away, I glanced back one more time. Those claw marks weren't made by anything human. My first night in the castle was mostly spent staring at the ceiling, trying not to spiral into another existential meltdown. The fire crackled, the bed was too soft, and the room was too quiet. Like padded cell quiet. Even the baby seemed unsettled, rolling around all night like he was doing laps in my uterus. By the time the morning bell rang, yes, they had an actual bell, I'd gotten maybe an hour of sleep and was already negotiating with my spine to survive the day. Turns out, castles don't come with maternity leave. I dragged myself into the servants' corridor like a dying sea lion, hunched, sore, and halfway convinced I'd aged 10 years overnight. My uniform still didn't fit. My feet were already swollen. My back ached like I'd been beaten with a tire iron, and I was only 3 steps into the south wing. "This is fine," I muttered, waddling through the first of what would be 12 assigned rooms. "Totally fine. Just scrubbing someone's 4th parlor while carrying a surprise cryptid baby. Living the dream." It wasn't even noon, and I'd already taken 4 breaks, 1 for breathing, 2 for sitting, and 1 emergency snack break to keep from sobbing on a velvet chaise. Marin and Anya didn't say anything. They just quietly picked up where I left off. Marin vacuumed the study without comment. Anya wiped down chandeliers while humming under her breath. No guilt tripping, no sighs, no whispered complaints. Just support, warm and silent. Which somehow made it worse. I hated being the weak link, hated the way my body betrayed me, hated how obvious it was that I didn't belong here. Every time I crouched, it took a full 90 seconds to get back up. Every time I tried to dust something above shoulder height, it felt like someone was sawing into my spine. At one point, I leaned against a windowsill and buried my face in my elbow. I wasn't crying, not really. By hour 3 of my first official shift, I was already sweating through my shirt and seriously questioning the integrity of my spine. The Bjarn folk didn't just collect furniture and gold, they hoarded square footage. The castle had more rooms than I had childhood traumas, and I'd been assigned to scrub about half of them before lunch. The vacuum made my hips ache, the dusting made my belly cramp. The stairs were a personal betrayal. "You should sit," Anya said gently, catching me leaning against a marble bust of some angry Viking warlord. "Your face looks like mashed oatmeal." "Thanks," I groaned. "You really know how to flatter a guy." She traded me her feather duster for a stool and dragged it over so I could slump beside a window while she wiped down the molding I'd given up on halfway through. Marin came in a moment later with a glass of water and a chunk of buttered black bread. "Break, now doctor's orders." "You're not a doctor." "I am when it suits me," she said, and shoved the bread into my hand. The kindness hit me sideways. No judgment, no eye rolls, no whispering behind my back. They didn't treat me like a freak, they just helped, which somehow made it worse. "I'm sorry," I muttered, picking crumbs off the crust. "I'm slowing you guys down." "Nonsense," Anya said. "We've been trying to get them to hire extra help for years." Marin grinned, motioning toward the garden. "Come outside. You'll feel better in the air." I followed, belly first, into the castle's rear garden, a sprawling, overgrown thing that looked like it had been designed by someone in mourning. Twisting hedges, dark-leafed trees, thorned roses clinging to iron trellises. We settled on a stone bench beside a pond choked with lily pads. "So," I said, "what's the deal with the rich creeps upstairs? They allergic to sunlight or just antisocial?" Marin glanced at Anya, who gave the tiniest nod, And then Maren began. The Bjarnfolk bloodline stretches back to the North Sea Kings, she said, warriors who bargained with old spirits. Midas's ancestors made a pact with Ursa, the primal bear, to win a war that should have destroyed them. In exchange, their blood was changed. Strength, power, resilience, and the beast within. The beast, I repeated, eyebrows raised. You mean like metaphoric beast or actual claws and growling type? Both, she said. They can shift. Some say fully, some say only in part. Midas was born with the full burden. They call him Fellborn, a throwback to the original shifters. Too strong, too wild. Anya added, that's why he's kept away, locked in the North Wing. His presence disturbs the family. I stared at them, trying to process the insane story, but something about it made the hair rise on my arms. It was crazy, ridiculous, folklore, and yet something deep inside me stirred, like the story wasn't new, like it was a memory. Maren looked at me carefully. Have you felt it? Felt what? She touched her chest. The pull, like something inside you remembers this place. I opened my mouth to say no, but the words tangled in my throat. The baby moved, just a twitch, but it was enough to make me flinch, because it wasn't just inside me anymore. It was around me, like the castle had taken notice. No, I said too quickly. I haven't felt anything, except tired and sore, and maybe mildly constipated. Maren smiled like she didn't believe me. Anya stayed quiet, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. I leaned back on the cold bench and stared up at the clouds gathering above the mountains. It was easier than looking at either of them. This place, their stories, shifters, Viking curses, ancestral bears. It was a lot to take in. And I wasn't in the mood to believe in fairy tales just because the air here smelled like frost and old blood. They were just messing with me, right? What's the name of your child? Anya asked suddenly. She looked curious. I froze. The bread in my hands went cold. My breath hitched in my throat, caught somewhere between shame and grief. Because nobody had ever asked me that before. Not the doctors, not my parents, not even Sarah. And worst of all, I hadn't asked myself. I hadn't allowed myself to. Because I wasn't supposed to keep it. This baby. This accident. It was never part of the plan. Tears hit my cheeks before I could stop them. Hot, fast, humiliating. Anya's eyes widened. Oh my God, I'm sorry. No, I croaked, swiping at my face with the back of my sleeve. I'm tired and hormonal and I'm fine. Really. You don't have to answer, Maren said softly, pressing a clean handkerchief into my hand. We assumed. It's nothing, I muttered. Don't worry about it. We sat in silence for a beat. The only sound was the wind rustling through the trees and the soft splash of fish in the garden pond. Then, why aren't you working? The voice struck like a slap. Harsh, deep, frayed at the edges with something feral. My head snapped around. A man stood at the edge of the path, half-shadowed under the gnarled black boughs of an ash tree. He wore a long black cloak that hung off his broad frame like a shroud. His hair was long, greasy, tangled like he'd torn through a storm and never dried off. His eyes. God, his eyes. They burned. Gold, glowing faintly like coals beneath ash, half-lidded but watching everything, hungry, angry, wild. I swallowed. Anya gasped and dropped into a bow so fast she nearly fell off the bench. King Midas! I am nobody's king, the man growled. His words slurred, just slightly. He swayed where he stood. The scent of booze and something earthier, fermented, primal, hit me like a punch to the nose. He was drunk, in the middle of the day, in a black cloak, at the edge of a damn garden like some cursed Shakespearean side character. He looked right at me. Not through me, not around me, at me. And I felt it in my bones, that same pull Marin had warned me about. "Get back to work," he snapped. Anya and Marin both scrambled to their feet, brushing off their aprons, fussing over their skirts. Anya hooked her arm under mine and helped me up gently, but her hands were trembling. "Yes, sir," Marin murmured. Nobody looked at him again. Not directly, I didn't either. But I felt him. Everywhere I went after that, I felt those burning eyes on the back of my neck. The beast in the walls had a face now, and it had seen me. Chapter 3. Terry. The table was long enough to seat a football team and carved from dark wood that looked older than most countries. Vaulted ceilings, iron chandeliers dripping with wax, and a fireplace so wide I could have walked into it. Lucian had given me explicit instructions. Serve, be quiet, don't spill anything. That last one felt pointed. I stood off to the side, stiff in my uniform, tray clutched like a shield as the family filtered in. All of them so composed, so sharp, so very, very inhuman in how perfect they looked. Lady Astrid arrived first, tall, glacial, the kind of beauty that stabbed instead of soothed. Her silver blonde hair was braided into something that looked vaguely ceremonial, and her lipstick was blood red. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone. Then came Lord Thorne, narrow-eyed, dressed in black, with white streaks in his beard and a perpetual scowl. He walked like someone who had personally ended kingdoms. Next were the twins, Sven and Jarek, all grins and mischief and golden curls, matching dark vests, matching unsettling smirks, the kind of guys who looked like they'd compliment your outfit and steal your bones. Einar entered last, silent and tall, wearing a fur-lined cloak despite the heat from the fire. His gaze flicked to me once and lingered, not in disgust, but in quiet curiosity. And they ate. God, they ate. There was enough food laid out to feed a small village. Roasted meats dripping in glaze, heavy black bread, butter, blood-red wine, slabs of root vegetables, and glistening fruit. They devoured it all like wolves at a feast, even Astrid, even the women. No one spoke at first, just the sounds of chewing, silver scraping porcelain, and the occasional grunted approval from Thorne. I did my job, refilling wine, clearing used dishes, avoiding eye contact. My back ached, my ankles burned, but it was fine. I was fine. Until he arrived. The doors creaked open and the air in the room shifted, like the pressure changed, like we all collectively inhaled and forgot to exhale. Midas. He stumbled into the room like he'd been dragged from a fight with a bottle. His hair was loose, wild, spilling past his shoulders in greasy waves. His cloak was askew, and he reeked of liquor and damp fur. He was beautiful and ruined. I froze. So did everyone else. He didn't apologize, didn't bow, didn't explain. He just dropped into the seat at the head of the table, slumped forward, and reached for his wine. It was empty. Lucian gave me a nod, discreet and quick. I moved to pour. My perception was off. Maybe it was my center of gravity. Maybe I was just nervous. But the moment I tipped the bottle, the wine missed the glass completely and splashed across his lap. Time stopped. The sound of dripping red onto velvet. Midas shot to his feet with a snarl, so fast the chair scraped back and several glasses toppled over. I stumbled, off balance, trying not to fall, but before I hit the floor, a hand like iron gripped my arm and yanked me back. I gasped. We were close. Too close. His chest heaved. His breath was ragged. His eyes were gold, glowing like molten metal, pulsating, not reflecting light, but giving it off. My heart stopped. So did his, I think. Then he blinked, and the glow faded, flickering like dying embers. I scrambled back, upright and ashamed, shoulders tense. "Why?" he growled. "Did they hire you in this condition?" It wasn't just the words. It was the tone, cutting, dismissive, cruel, and it cut deeper than I expected. I opened my mouth, but Lucian cut in smoothly, stepping between us like a well-practiced shield. "We hire all people, sir. We do not discriminate." Midas stared at him, hard, for 1, 2, 3 seconds. Then he dropped his napkin onto the table, turned, and stalked out. Silence fell like a dropped stone. "Whoa, well," Astrid said, dabbing her lips. "That was better than last time." "I gave it 5 minutes," Sven said with a grin. "3, muttered Jarek. No one laughed. "And me?" I just stood there, heart racing, skin flushed, eyes stinging, because for one burning moment, he looked at me like he knew me, and I didn't know why. I didn't cry, at least not right away. I sat on the edge of my bed, the glow from the fireplace barely touching the corners of the room, holding the wine-stained apron in my hands like it meant something. My stomach was tight, sore, and the baby hadn't moved in a while. Maybe he was stunned too. "Why did they hire you in this condition?" The words rang over and over in my head. They shouldn't have hurt. I'd heard worse, lived worse. But the way he said it, like I was less, like I was some mess tracked in from the woods, it landed somewhere deep, somewhere raw. I hated that it got to me. A knock on my door broke the silence. 3 gentle taps, not urgent, measured. I stood up slower than I wanted to, crossed the room, and cracked the door open. Lucian stood there, still pristine in his black suit, not a single hair out of place. His gloves were gone, though. His bare hands were pale, veined, and long-fingered, like a pianist or a strangler, maybe both. "Mr. Terry," he said, voice smooth as aged scotch. "May I?" I stepped aside, unsure why the air suddenly felt thinner. He didn't look around, didn't comment on the room. He just walked to the fireplace, studied the flames, and clasped his hands behind his back like a man practicing grief. "I came to apologize," he said, "for His Majesty's behavior." I closed the door and leaned back against it, arms crossed. "You don't have to." "I do." He turned toward me, face open, voice even. "Midas. He's not himself. His mate died 3 years ago. Violently. He hasn't recovered." I blinked. "His mate?" Lucian nodded once. "A powerful woman, respected, chosen, and when she died, something inside him snapped. He's been unwell since, distant, erratic, and frequently inebriated, but I assure you, he wasn't always like this." I didn't know what to say to that. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel something. Empathy, maybe. Pity. Understanding for the brooding, terrifying man who'd humiliated me in front of his whole cursed family. Instead, I just said, "He still didn't have to be an ass about it." Lucian chuckled softly and crossed the room in a few quiet strides. He sat beside me on the bed without asking, close enough that our knees nearly touched. He smelled like expensive soap and wine. "We want you to feel welcome here," he said. "Truly." His hand came down lightly on my knee. Not a squeeze, not a full touch. Just resting there. And I hated it. Every instinct in me recoiled. My whole body went rigid, like something cold had trickled down my spine. He smiled. But it wasn't kind. It was too smooth, too polished, too practiced. Like a mask stretched too tight over a face that didn't feel anymore. "I appreciate that," I said stiffly, carefully shifting away so his hand fell. He stood immediately, like nothing had happened. The smile didn't fade. "I'll let you rest," he said, bowing just slightly at the door. "If you need anything at all, I'm always available." He left without another word. I sat there, staring at the door long after it closed. The fire popped, the shadows shifted, and the warmth I should have felt from his apology never came. Cleaning the library sounded a hell of a lot more peaceful than scrubbing blood-colored wine out of someone's royal underpants. And for the most part, it was. Quiet, dusty, heavy with the scent of old paper and cracked leather. The walls stretched high above me, lined with endless shelves, books stacked in neat rows, some bound in languages I couldn't read. The stained glass windows filtered the light in moody strips of red and blue. It should have been relaxing, except I felt like I was being watched. Again, I chalked it up to nerves, lack of sleep, the weird meat from last night. Still, every time I turned a corner or passed one of the tall bookshelves, I swore I saw movement, just a flicker, out of the corner of my eye. I kept dusting, kept moving, tried not to think about the napkin slamming onto the table. The way his voice barked through me like a whip, the way his hand had caught mine, searing and solid, the way his eyes glowed. And then I saw it, high on the top shelf above the second spiral staircase. A book, no label on the spine, no dust. It looked untouched, but it glowed, just faintly. A deep iridescent blue pulsing like a heartbeat. I blinked, stepped back, and rubbed my eyes, still glowing. A wave of heat rolled through me, low and insistent. I didn't know why, but I needed to touch it, like an itch behind my ribcage, like a thought I couldn't unthink. My hand reached for the stool before I even decided to. I knew it was dumb. The stool was thin, old, clearly built for someone not carrying the weight of an entire person plus their freeloading womb tenant. But I climbed it anyway. Slow, careful. My fingers stretched toward the light. The stool wobbled. I froze. A heartbeat later, the leg cracked. I let out a strangled yelp as the stool caved underneath me, the floor rushing up fast. I braced for impact, for bruises, for another humiliation. But instead, I landed hard against something solid, warm, alive, arms wrapped around me, strong, steady. Heat bled through layers of cloth and skin and muscle, and I looked up, right into his face. Midas. Closer than I'd ever seen him. His long hair was still a little damp, hanging loose around his jaw, framing cheekbones too sharp for someone so wild. His mouth parted, and I could feel his breath against my cheek, warm and sharp with something not quite human. But it was his eyes that held me. Gold, pulsing again, like they were calling something in me awake. For a second, neither of us breathed. His arms didn't drop, mine didn't push. We just stayed there, locked in this strange magnetic pause, like the castle itself had gone still. I flinched back. He caught me tighter. "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" he snapped. No, I was just cleaning," I stammered. "There was a book. You shouldn't be here alone." His voice shook something loose in my chest, but I shoved it back down. "I'm not a child," I muttered. "I don't need a babysitter." His grip didn't loosen. "Then stop acting like one." That stung, again. He let me go suddenly, and I stumbled to catch my balance. The book no longer glowed. "Stay off ladders," he muttered, turning his back, "especially in your condition." "I have a name," I snapped before I could stop myself. That made him pause. He turned halfway, gaze unreadable. Then he said it, softly, slowly. "Terry." The way he said it felt strange, like he was tasting it for the first time, like it meant something. He left without another word, and I stood there, breath trembling, staring up at the shelf where the book had been. There was no light now, just dust, and a growing sense that something very old had just woken up. Chapter 4. Terry. The corridor stretched on forever. Stone walls, flickering torchlight. Silence so heavy it had weight. My footsteps didn't echo. My breath barely stirred the air. I didn't remember falling asleep, but I was dreaming. I had to be. Because the castle didn't look like this during the day. The walls were covered in ancient carvings, symbols I didn't recognize but felt familiar. Bear claws, spirals, shapes that pulsed faintly beneath the surface, like veins under skin. And the smell. Earth, blood, old fur. I walked without meaning to, drawn forward by something unseen. My hands brushed the walls as I passed, the stone warm under my palms. At the end of the hall, a door waited. It was tall, arched, carved from black wood, and etched with runes that flickered blue like that book on the shelf. I reached for the handle, heart pounding, but the second my fingers grazed it, I woke up. Except, not in my room. I was in the library, lying awkwardly on the dusty carpet, curled against a pile of forgotten atlases. The fireplace was out, the windows were dark, my head throbbed, and my skin felt clammy. "What the hell?" I mumbled. Then the screaming started. It came from the north wing, sharp, panicked, animalistic. A wail that sliced the castle's silence in half. Someone was shouting. Then something else answered. A roar that made my bones seize. My gut lurched. Go! My brain screamed it. Go now! I hauled myself upright, the baby shifting inside me like he felt the terror too. My legs moved before my sense caught up. Down the hall, through the double doors, past the oil paintings and flickering sconces. The air grew colder. The corridor narrowed. Then a low snarl. I froze. Every hair on my arms lifted. From above me, on the spiral staircase that led to the north wing, something moved. Heavy, massive, breathing loud enough to rattle glass. I looked up, and there it was. A grizzly bear. Huge, more beast than animal. Its fur shimmered dark gold in the torchlight, its eyes glowing, furious. Breath steamed from its maw as it crouched low, watching me. It leapt. A blur of motion, a roar that cracked the walls. It thundered past me, through the hall, claws gouging stone, shaking the floor as it vanished into the darkness beyond. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I screamed. And woke up again. This time for real, drenched in sweat, back in my bed, chest heaving like I'd run a marathon. My hands flew to my stomach. The baby shifted under my palm. Alive. Okay. Jesus, I whispered, tears welling despite myself. What the hell was that? A dream within a dream. But I couldn't shake it. That bear, those eyes, the glowing runes, and the book. I sat up slowly, mind racing, the early morning light just beginning to seep through the curtains. I had to find it again. Whatever that book was, whatever it did, it was calling me. And now, I was finally ready to answer. The book wasn't glowing anymore. I'd searched the shelves before sunrise, tracing every inch of the library until my fingers were black with dust. But nothing stood out. It was like the book never existed, or it was waiting, like everything else in this place. I was bent over one of the desks, scrubbing at some dried ink that refused to lift, when I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy, deliberate. Lucian didn't walk, he glided. But this was different. I didn't turn around. I was just reaching across the desk for another rag when it happened. A firm pat right on my ass. Not a brush, not a graze, a full palm to cheek. I froze. My breath caught. My fingers curled around the rag. Careful, Lucian said lightly behind me, his voice silk-wrapped poison. Didn't want you to fall. I straightened slowly, nausea crawling up my throat. His smile was already waiting for me, smug, sharp, wrong, like he knew exactly what he'd done and exactly how little I could do about it. My skin prickled, my ears rang. But I said nothing. Because I needed this job. Because no one would believe me if I said anything. Because the alternative was returning home to a couch where my father scratched himself and asked when I was due like it was a joke. To a mother who hadn't spoken a full sentence in 3 years. To food stamps and cold showers and that mattress that smelled like old milk and shame. So I smiled too. Tight, brittle. I'm fine, I lied. Lucian's gaze lingered just a beat too long. Then he turned and plucked an invisible speck of dust from the desk. Tonight will be busy, he said. The family is hosting one of their seasonal gatherings. A few associates from the outer territories. It's a formal occasion. We expect elegance. I'm literally pregnant, I muttered before I could stop myself. Lucian's smile thinned. And yet we expect you to manage just fine. Of course they did. Best behavior, Mr. Terry, he said, adjusting his cuffs. Don't embarrass yourself, or us. He left without waiting for a reply, his scent of polished wood and cold stone lingering like a bruise. I stared at the desk for a long time after. The baby shifted low in my belly as if curling in on himself. I know, buddy, I murmured, resting a hand there. I don't like him either. But I still had to serve drinks. I still had to smile. And I still had to find that book. Because something inside this castle was unraveling. And I had a feeling it was going to start tonight. The velvet suit was too tight. My feet ached. And if one more person looked at me like I was either a servant or a sideshow, I was going to scream. So I slipped out. No one noticed. No one ever really did. The back garden was dimly lit, full of heavy night blooms and statues that looked older than civilization. The hedges were perfectly manicured, towering, and just beyond them, the jagged tips of the mountain loomed like frozen teeth. And there, at the edge of the terrace, was him, Midas, leaning against the stone balustrade, alone. A cigarette burned between his fingers. A bottle of something amber glinted beside him. His coat was off, his collar loosened, and for the first time, he didn't look like a nightmare in king's clothing. He looked like a man, broken, hollow, barely holding himself up. He saw me, straightened a little, then quickly ground out the cigarette against the stone and looked away like I'd caught him doing something shameful. I could have left. I should have, but I didn't. You smoke? I said, dumbly. He glanced over. His expression didn't change. When I want to feel something. I stopped a few feet away, arms crossed over my stomach, half hidden by the creeping roses. You look like you hate being in there, I said. I do. A beat. He took a drink from the bottle, swallowed hard, then offered it to me silently. I shook my head. I'm kind of, you know. I nodded to my belly. Right. Another pause. I didn't want this, he said suddenly. His voice was quieter now, almost brittle. The throne, the castle, the ceremonies. I was supposed to live a quiet life with her, Mpreg. We were going to disappear into the wild, into the old woods, live the way the first bears did, not this circus. What happened? He stared out into the dark. She was murdered, torn apart during a siege. I got there too late. I was too late for everything. I swallowed, unsure what to say. The anger in his voice wasn't loud, but deep, ancient, like a fault line under pressure. I'm sorry, I said quietly. He let out a sharp breath through his nose. Don't pity me. You don't even know me. You're right, I said. But I don't think you know yourself anymore either. That made him look at me. Really look. And for once, there wasn't fire in his eyes, just exhaustion. How old are you? I asked, before I could think better of it. His mouth twitched. Not a smile, exactly. More like the memory of one. 1,000, he said, almost amused. Maybe older. I've stopped counting. My brows lifted. Seriously? He nodded once. The Bear Kings don't die easily, especially the cursed ones. There was silence after that. Not uncomfortable. Just heavy. Shared. I stood beside him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating off his body. The bottle clinked softly against the stone. For the first time, I wasn't scared of him. He didn't feel like a monster anymore. He felt like someone who had lost everything and was still expected to smile for the family portraits. Chapter 5. Terry. The castle was colder the next morning. Maybe it was the storm clouds rolling in. Or maybe it was the news I got over burnt eggs and weak tea. You're to be reassigned, Lucian said, approaching from behind like a shadow I couldn't shake. Due to your condition? I blinked, toast halfway to my mouth. My what? Pregnancy, he clarified, like I might have forgotten. It's been decided that your workload needs to be moderated. My chest tightened. Decided by who? Lucian smiled. Too wide, too white. King Midas. I almost choked. King Midas? The man who couldn't look at me without flinching? The one who barked at me like I was a stain on his carpet? That guy? I frowned. Why? Lucian's shrug was slow, elegant. Perhaps he took pity on you. That stung more than it should have. I shoved the rest of my toast in my mouth to avoid saying something stupid. But, he added, your reassignment does come with one rather unique expectation. I narrowed my eyes. You will now be solely responsible for cleaning the North Wing. My stomach dropped. The North Wing. The one with the claw marks on the walls. The one that moaned at night when no one else was around. The one no staff member dared go near without whispering a prayer first. I looked at him. Isn't that where... Yes, Lucian cut in smoothly. Where the king resides. You'll be expected to maintain the quarters with respect, discretion, and speed. I hesitated, but then I thought of my parents, the broken mattress, the distant look in my mother's eyes. I'll do it, I said. Fine. The North Wing felt colder today. Or maybe that was just me, nerves twisting tight, knees already aching as I waddled through the massive, creaky hall with my little cleaning cart like a poor man's Mary Poppins. I stopped at the double doors of Midas's chamber, took a shaky breath, and pushed them open. The room was dark as ever. The heavy curtains shut tight, casting the space in moody, permanent twilight. He was still asleep, half sprawled across the mattress like he owned the world, because technically he did. His hair was loose again, tangled and falling over his bare shoulders. The blankets were pushed halfway off his hips, revealing an indecent amount of muscle and sinful indifference. Nope. Not today, Satan. I stormed over to the windows, grabbed the velvet curtains in both hands, and yanked them open with a flourish. Sunlight poured in like a slap. Midas groaned, low and guttural, like some kind of wounded animal. What the fudge? Morning, Your Majesty, I chirped with exaggerated cheer. Time to air out the crypt. He hissed and buried his face in the pillow. I liked you better when you were quiet and terrified. I grabbed a trash bag and started gathering the scattered takeout boxes. That version of me is gone. R.I.P. Say a prayer. You shouldn't be bending like that, he snapped without looking. I'm pregnant, not glass. You'll hurt yourself. I shot him a glare over my shoulder. I said I'm fine. You're not fine, he growled, finally pushing himself upright. His voice was rough with sleep and annoyance. You're stubborn and clumsy, and you can't even see your feet. I blinked at him. Did you just insult my unborn child? Only by association, he muttered, running a hand through his hair. That kid better come out less mouthy than you. Oh, don't worry, I said, stuffing wrappers into the bag. The baby's already more mature than you are. His head whipped toward me, golden eyes narrowed. Are you always this annoying? Only when I'm treated like a glass doll and a nuisance. Pick one. For a second, he just stared at me. Then he laughed. Short, rough, like it surprised even him. I froze. He stopped too, the sound dying on his lips, as if he realized he'd let something slip. Neither of us spoke. I straightened slowly, clutching the now full trash bag, trying to ignore the blush rising in my cheeks. He looked tired, not just from sleep, but like his soul was sore. What are you even doing here? He asked suddenly. Why this place? I shrugged. They said room and board. That's all? And the library's nice. A pause. His mouth curled into something dangerous. You're not here for me? I snorted. You? Please. I've had fevers with better manners. He chuckled again, but it didn't last. I turned away, back to work, but I felt his gaze on me the whole time. Not judging, just watching. Like he couldn't quite figure me out. Like maybe neither of us were who we used to be. I wasn't expecting anything when I dragged myself to my room that night. Just the usual. Creaky door, drafty air, maybe a spider or two giving me side-eye from the corner. My back was killing me, ankles swollen, and the weight of the day hung on me like wet laundry. But when I opened the door, I stopped cold. There, on the little rickety desk near my bed, was a bundle of ginger root, fresh, sharp, still earthy like it had just been pulled from the ground. I blinked at it. Next to it, a neatly folded linen napkin wrapped around a handful of crackers, plain. Exactly the kind the nurses said to nibble on when the nausea made the world spin. My eyes flicked toward the bed. The sheets were clean, really clean, still faintly warm, tucked tight with a precision I didn't have the energy for, and they smelled like lavender and lemon balm. My chest twisted. I picked up the teacup waiting on the nightstand, steam still rising, and sniffed. Lemon balm. For sleep. A small bottle sat beside it. Massage oil. Safe for pregnancy. For stretch marks. I recognized the brand. It wasn't cheap. I slowly sank onto the edge of the mattress, throat tightening. Anya? I whispered. She had to have done this. But the next morning, I asked her. She shook her head. I assumed it was Marin. Marin said the same thing. That left one terrifying possibility. Lucian. I shuddered, but when I asked, carefully, casually, hoping he wouldn't see the suspicion in my face, he looked genuinely confused. What are you talking about? So not him. I thought that was it. Until I turned back toward my bed later that night to find something new. A small knitted onesie, cream-colored wool, tiny bear ears on the hood. Buttons down the belly, handmade by the look of it. Not store-bought, not fancy, just soft and careful and devastating. I stared at it. My lip wobbled. Then I broke. The tears came fast and hard, no warning. 1 minute I was holding the onesie to my chest, and the next I was doubled over, shoulders shaking, mouth covered by my hand so no one would hear me sob. No one had ever done something like this for me. It was so stupid. Just fabric and thread and probably some rich person's idea of charity. But I felt seen. I curled up on the bed, the onesie still in my hands. Maybe I was losing it. Or maybe, just maybe, someone in this castle gave a damn. And for the first time in months, I fell asleep smiling. The next day, I found myself back in the North Wing. Same mess, same tension. But something felt different. Maybe it was the onesie tucked safely in my drawer back in the servant quarters. Maybe it was the scent of lemon still clinging to my skin. Maybe it was the tiny, ridiculous hope warming my chest like I'd swallowed candlelight. Midas was sprawled in bed as usual, an arm thrown over his eyes like he was avoiding the world. His shirt was half open, the blanket tangled around his hips, and he muttered something unintelligible as I walked in with my bucket and broom. I didn't say anything right away. I started cleaning, slow and methodical, picking up bottles and papers, stacking dishes, scrubbing crumbs off the table where he liked to sulk with food at 2 a.m. And then I cleared my throat. He didn't move, so I said it, soft and steady. Thank you. His arm slid down just enough to uncover one golden eye. It blinked at me with lazy disinterest. For what? The stuff, I said, in my room. He rolled onto his side with a dramatic groan, like this conversation was already exhausting him. What stuff? The ginger, the tea, the clean sheets, the oils. My fingers tightened on the rag. The onesie. His mouth twitched, just a little. Then he yawned like this was all beneath him. I have no idea what you're talking about. Have your hormones finally gotten to your head? I arched an eyebrow. Sure, my hormones knit a onesie. Midas didn't answer. He just closed his eyes again, but his smile lingered, unmistakably crooked, unmistakably smug. And I saw it then. He wanted me to know. He just didn't want to admit it. I turned away, hiding my grin. "Well," I said, "whoever did it has excellent taste." "I hope the baby inherits your sarcasm," he muttered from the bed. "Why?" I asked, smirking. "So you can argue with two of us?" He chuckled under his breath, just once. But it was real. I didn't say anything else. I just kept cleaning, pretending my heart wasn't beating faster, pretending I wasn't already looking forward to the next time I walked through this door. Chapter 6. Terry. My first day off. Lucian had told me, somewhat reluctantly, that I could use the gardens if I needed air. "Don't stray too far," he added with a fake smile. "The grounds have moods." Whatever that meant. I wandered the worn stone paths anyway, letting the sunlight fall through the massive trees, their thick canopies gently stirring in the wind. Bees buzzed in the wildflowers. The air smelled green and a little old, like the forest remembered things long after people forgot. I needed this. My back ached, my ankles throbbed. My thoughts had been so loud lately, it was hard to tell which were mine and which were just echoes of this cursed place. Then I saw him. At first, I thought it was a statue. Midas stood at the far edge of the garden in a long black coat, his hair pulled back, motionless as stone. He was staring down at two simple headstones carved from deep gray marble. The wind stirred his coat, but he didn't move. I stopped, didn't want to intrude. But something about the way his shoulders curved, like the grief was still too heavy to lift, made something twist in my chest. I inched closer, quiet as I could. The names were simple: Mpreg, Axel. I didn't need to ask who they were. Wife, son, gone. Midas looked hollow, as if he'd been carved out by something ancient and slow. His mouth was tight, his eyes dry, but distant, like he wasn't really standing here at all. I didn't think. I just reached out. My fingers brushed his sleeve, and the moment I touched him, he shivered. So did I. Something passed between us like a current, a breath, a low, aching hum that settled in my bones. "I'm sorry for your loss," I whispered. He didn't answer right away. Then, finally, "Thank you." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was soft, mutual, full of unspoken things. I stood with him, not saying a word, just breathing the same air, just existing in the same ache. I didn't know how long we were there, minutes, maybe more. Eventually, the ache in my ankles got to me. I gestured toward the castle. He nodded once, eyes still on the graves. I left him there, grief clinging to his shoulders like frost. And something inside me sank. He'd lost everything, but he was still standing. And I didn't know whether that made him strong or just haunted. We ran into each other again after my shift. I was sweaty, tired, and already undoing the top button of my shirt when I turned the corner and nearly smacked into him. Midas. He looked freshly showered, hair damp, pulled back, eyes darker than usual. "You busy?" he asked. I hesitated, glancing down at my swollen ankles. "I mean, I could be less busy." He smirked. "Walk with me." We strolled through the castle, the long halls humming with silence and soft candlelight. His hands stayed behind his back, mine cupped my belly protectively. There was something oddly peaceful about it. Then he said it. "What happened to you, seeing as there's no father in the picture?" I didn't answer right away. It should have pissed me off, should have made me snap. But his tone wasn't cruel, just curious, like he wanted to understand. So I told him the truth. "My parents are crap," I muttered, and one night I just woke up like this. No explanations, just nausea, no partner, no penetration, no nothing. Every doctor I saw said it was some rare gene, recessive, weird, a fluke. "You didn't tell anyone?" I laughed dryly. Would you believe a 19-year-old guy saying he just woke up pregnant one day? He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "There's an old folklore about a tired king who impregnated a sweet maiden with a pure heart. No touch, no union, just spirit recognizing spirit, and life answering." I scoffed. "Are you saying I'm some kind of maiden?" "No," Midas smiled, soft. "Just, you're a hard worker and a pure heart." I snorted. "My parents would laugh at that." "Your parents?" he asked. "They're scum," I muttered. "That's why I can't go back." "I figured as much," he said after a beat. "I'm sorry, but I looked into your past. Your friend Sarah was very helpful." "Sarah?" I gasped, spinning toward him. "She told you about me?" "You'd be surprised what Taylor Swift tickets can get out of the strongest people." I laughed, loud and real and unguarded, and it reverberated down the stone hallway. He grinned, clearly proud of himself, and gestured to a small wooden door I'd never noticed before. Without a word, he opened it and flicked on the lights. I stepped in, and my heart stopped. It was a nursery, a real one, the softest, most beautiful room I'd ever seen. Warm colors, clean lines, a crib with hand-carved detail, a rocking chair in the corner, a mobile of stars, blankets folded into perfect squares. The fabric of the curtains alone was worth more than every outfit I owned combined. "I may not be able to use it," Midas said quietly, "but you can." My entire chest caved in. Before I knew what I was doing, I turned and threw my arms around him, hugging him so close, shaking so hard I thought I'd fall apart. Midas laughed softly, hugging me back. His chin rested against the top of my head. And then I felt it. His nose brushed my curls. He took a breath, a deep one. The air changed, shifted, thickened. I pulled back, heart hammering, and looked up at him. Really looked. Up close I could see his face clearly now, wide and rough-hewn, his nose slightly crooked like it had been broken once. His lips were full, his cheekbones high, and his eyes, those golden eyes, alive, blazing, locked onto mine. Midas cleared his throat, stepping back. "Sorry, Yeah," I said quickly, cheeks burning. Yeah." But the space between us still crackled. And for the first time since I'd come to this strange, haunted place, I didn't want to run. I woke up smiling, not on purpose. It just happened. 1 second, I was dreaming of gold eyes and rough hands holding me like I mattered. Next thing I know, I'm waking up grinning at the ceiling like someone laced the office cookies with heroin. Ugh. I flopped back into the pillows, groaning. What the hell is wrong with me? But I knew. He'd held me. He'd breathed me in. And I let him. Worse, I wanted to again. I dragged myself out of bed, cleaned up, and waddled down to the breakfast hall, fully prepared to shove those thoughts down into whatever pit inside me stored all my bad ideas. That plan lasted about 30 seconds. Because the moment I walked into the kitchen, Marin lit up like she'd just won the lottery. "Well, look who's glowing," she said. "Don't," I warned, lifting a finger. "Too late," Anya sing-songed behind her. "He's already here." I blinked, confused. "Who's—" "Lavender," Marin said sweetly, placing a bundle on the table in front of me. "Fresh, still a little dewy. Guess who brought it?" I stared. "Someone came early to drop it off," she added, not even trying to be subtle. "Yeah." Anya giggled behind her hand. "Midas looked especially chipper today." "Shut up," I muttered, cheeks flaming. "He's just taking pity on me is all." "Oh, honey." Anya rolled her eyes. "You really have no idea how handsome you are." "Handsome?" I nearly choked on my tea. "Me? Handsome?" I laughed, genuinely stunned. "I've got green eyes, sure, and wavy hair that never sits still. Freckles everywhere. I look like a thrift store porcelain doll who lost a fight with humidity." "You're adorable," Marin said, shaking her head. "And stubborn, and sweet. He sees that." I blinked down at the lavender in my hands. It smelled like peace, like something sacred, Like maybe someone out there saw something in me worth calming, worth caring for. A warmth bloomed low in my chest, dangerous and too easy to love. Maybe they were wrong. Maybe it meant nothing. But the thought lingered, stubborn and bright. Midas had smiled at me, and I didn't think it was pity at all. Marin and Anya were still giggling as they cleared the dishes, their teasing glances making my ears burn. I was too slow to escape with them. As usual, they slipped out just as Lucian walked in. The room went colder. His polished boots clicked across the stone floor, his smile already glued on too tight. "Ladies," he said, and both women dipped their heads quickly, voices stiff with forced politeness. "Sir." Then they were gone. I moved slower, belly heavy and aching from too many chores and too little rest. I reached for the doorway, and that's when Lucian stepped in front of me. Too close. Way too close. His cologne stung my nose, something expensive and bitter, like scorched pine needles and arrogance. I took a half step back, but the wall was behind me. "You smell nice today," he said softly. My blood ran cold. He touched my cheek, fingers warm and lingering. Like lemon. I tried to turn my head, but he leaned in, breath hot at my ear. "Let me know if you need me to take care of those needs." My stomach flipped. "Well, what needs?" He smiled, wolfish and cruel. "You know." His fingers skimmed my shoulder. Pregnancy can raise hormone levels. A man can get needy. If you ever want a distraction, something to take the edge off. His voice dropped, thick and slow. "I'll be waiting." I almost threw up in my mouth. Lucian was disgustingly handsome. Sharp jaw, golden hair, eyes that could have been carved out of marble. But none of it mattered. His personality was hideous. Something rotten beneath the perfection, like fruit left too long in the sun. I stepped aside, quickly. "Don't touch me." He blinked, like surprised I had the nerve. Then he smiled again, uglier this time. "Think about it," he said. I didn't look back. I stormed out, shaking, bile crawling up the back of my throat. The lavender in my hand felt like a shield, like something good, something kind, and I clutched it tighter. I needed air. I needed space. And maybe I needed to tell someone, because Lucian was getting bolder, and I wasn't sure I could keep dodging him much longer. Chapter 7. Terry. Midas claimed it was a mental health day, but I think he just wanted to escape. Not that I was complaining. He showed up mid-morning, cloaked in black as usual, but something about his smile was lighter, softer. He led me out past the hedges, through the overgrown gate, and into a field that sloped gently toward the cliffside. The view stretched out forever, forests tumbling over hills, mountains in the distance like sleeping giants. It was the kind of quiet that made your bones go still. He laid out a blanket and opened the basket himself, pulling out sandwiches, fruit, and a bottle of water like it was some grand feast. "You made this?" I teased, raising an eyebrow. "No, I'm not a martyr," he said, deadpan. "Anja did, but I told her what to pack." "Wow," I said, biting into a sandwich. "Royal taste." He smirked. "I like what I like." "You're picky." "I'm ancient. It's allowed." That made me laugh, and his eyes, clear, bright gold, flicked up to mine, then dropped just for a second to my mouth. My heart did something stupid in my chest. I looked away, cheeks burning, and picked at the edge of the blanket. We talked about everything and nothing. How awful the castle stairs were. How he hated red wine. How I used to pretend to be a wizard in my parents' attic. He told me about his favorite moon phases and how owls were a sign of good luck where he was from. "You're not what I expected," I murmured at one point. "Oh?" He tilted his head. "You're less terrifying. And you're less annoying than I assumed." His smile curved crooked. "Though the day is still young." I rolled my eyes, tossing a grape at him. He caught it in his mouth like a damn show-off. I snorted. "Okay, That was hot. His eyes met mine again, and this time they stayed. For a long moment, neither of us looked away. I saw all of him in that gold. The grief, the rage, the centuries of loneliness wrapped in something fiercely gentle. I didn't realize I was leaning closer until the air between us grew tight. He did it first, leaning in, slow and careful, like he wasn't sure I'd let him. Then his lips brushed mine. Software almost reverent. He pulled back too fast, breath hitching like he regretted it the second it happened. "I'm sorry," he muttered, eyes wide. That was inappropriate. But I didn't stop to think. I kissed him back like I was starving, because in that moment, I was. Crashing into him with a kiss that was all teeth and need. My hormones were raging. My body was a live wire. Something inside me snapped, and I couldn't stop kissing him, couldn't stop wanting him. He kissed me back, hot and eager, his hands digging into my hips before he tore himself away with a groan. "Terry," Midas panted. "Wait, I won't take advantage of you." "You aren't," I started, but he shook his head, breath catching. "I am," he said, voice tight. "You are so beautiful, Terry. I'm trying to pace myself." He flushed so red he looked like a sun-ripened tomato. "Oh," I blinked. "Oh, he liked me. That was new." "You like me?" "If that isn't obvious," he muttered, "then I've done a horrible job." "I mean," I licked my lips, suddenly shy. "You want to date me?" "More than that," he said quietly. "I feel drawn to you, like I've known you before, like my soul reaches for yours and remembers. I hope I'm not coming on too strong." "You aren't," I kissed him again, hands buried in his hair. "Not strong enough." Midas chuckled into my mouth, low and warm. His hand slid up my back, cradling me like I might break, and for a second, I felt invincible. He pulled away, eyes gleaming. "You should relax," he said gently, smoothing my hair back. "I'll wait. For as long as it takes." And that was the most terrifying part of all, because for the first time, someone meant it. Chapter 8, Terry. We didn't kiss again, not right away. Instead, I curled into him, the curve of my belly pressing against his side as his arm looped around me protectively. He smelled like cedar and smoke, like earth, like the forest had decided to walk around in human skin for a while. The breeze picked up. His cloak fluttered behind him. We sat like that, quiet, watching the horizon. "I still don't get it," I whispered eventually. "Why me?" Midas tilted his head slightly, his chin brushing the top of my hair. "What do you mean?" "You're the Grizzly King, brooding and ancient or whatever, and I'm just some washed-up college dropout with a baby and heartburn and bad knees." "That's not what I see," he said. I snorted. "What do you see then?" He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, softly, something pure, something new, someone who doesn't look at me like I'm a beast in a cage. I blinked up at him, and he was already watching me. His eyes were so clear they didn't seem real, yellow and glowing faintly, even in the dying light. "You've lived here forever," I said, voice low. "What happened to you, Midas? What really happened?" He flinched, but didn't pull away. "My mate died," he said after a long pause. "Mpreg, she died with our son during the last shift surge. I wasn't there in time. His throat worked. "I was supposed to protect them." He looked down at his hands. "These hands were made to destroy, and I've been doing it ever since." A chill moved through me. "You think you're cursed." "I know I am," he said. "Ursa doesn't let its kings grow old, not without taking something from them first. The madness, the rage, it's in my blood. It's what I am." I sat up slightly, just enough to look at him full on. "And yet you still left me lemon balm tea and knitted a onesie." His face turned crimson. I didn't knit it, I found it. In storage. But you put it there. He didn't answer. I reached for his hand. It was huge and calloused, but when I held it, he held mine right back. You think you're broken, I said softly. But that doesn't mean you don't deserve to be loved. He turned away, voice hollow. I'm not safe. I don't feel unsafe with you. I've killed before. I've wanted to, I muttered, mostly Lucian. That earned me a soft laugh, short, surprised. He looked at me again, really looked, and for a second I saw the man beneath the curse, just a tired, bruised soul, all the armor stripped away. I don't know what this is, I said. Us, or this baby, or this place. But I'm not afraid of you. You should be. Too late. He stared at me for a beat, then gently rested his hand over mine, where it sat against my belly. I'll wait, he whispered, for whatever this becomes, for as long as you'll let me. The silence settled over us again, soft and heavy like a blanket. Midas still had his hand over mine, resting gently against my stomach. The gesture should have felt too intimate, too soon, but somehow it just felt right. His thumb brushed back and forth, like he was memorizing the shape of me. Tell me more about you, he said quietly, not looking at me. Where you came from, what your life was like before. Before all this, before I woke up pregnant, before the castle, before him. I looked out toward the trees. The sun had almost set now, just a sliver of light left bleeding along the horizon. My dad was an asshole, I said bluntly. He yelled, he drank. He never worked a day in his life unless it involved scratching his balls and blaming me for it. Midas said nothing, just listened. And my mom. My throat tightened. She was there, but she wasn't. She just shut down, like her soul left her body and only the shell stayed. She'd sit and stare at the walls for hours, days. I'd ask her if she was hungry. She never answered. I rubbed at my arm. By the time I was 13, I knew I was on my own. The words came easier than I thought they would. I always told myself I didn't need anyone. If I needed help, that meant I was failing, weak. I looked down at my belly. And then this happened. No warning, no memory. Just me, alone, pregnant, scared out of my mind, and not even the doctors could explain it. His grip on my hand tightened slightly. I told myself I could do it alone, I whispered. That I had to. That if I depended on anyone, I'd lose them, like I always do. Midas turned to look at me. That's not weakness, Terry. That's surviving. I blinked at him. You sound like you know the difference. He gave a bitter smile. I'm starting to. We sat for a moment longer, and then I smiled, softer this time. There is someone, one person who's always been there for me. Oh. Sarah, my best friend. She's loud, nosy, and possibly allergic to wearing matching socks, but she's the closest thing to family I've ever had. She's the one who found me this job. She didn't even tell me it was a castle, just said, pack your bags, loser. Midas gave a low, amused huff. I laughed. I miss her. So much it's like this ache in my chest. Sometimes I pick up my phone just to see if she texted, but there's no signal here, and even if I wanted to go back. My smile faded. I wouldn't. Not really. Because for the first time in my life, I trailed off, searching for the word. Safe. I don't know how to explain it. This place is cursed and weird and cold as hell, but... You don't want to leave. No, I don't, I admitted. And that scares me too. He nodded slowly. Because you've spent your whole life believing you had to do everything alone, he said. And now that you don't, it feels like giving in. My throat tightened again. Yeah. You're not alone, Terry, he said. Not anymore. I leaned into him again, curling under his arm. We didn't kiss this time. We didn't have to. Because this quiet, fragile peace between us, it was the most intimate thing I'd ever known. Midas and I talked until the sky burned orange and gold, and even after the food was gone and the breeze had grown sharp, neither of us made the move to leave. He listened. Really listened. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to hide the broken, complicated pieces of myself to be accepted. When the sun finally dipped behind the hills, he walked me back, our steps slow, our fingers brushing once or twice before he folded his hands behind his back. Ever the gentleman, ever the brooding, cursed grizzly gentleman. We reached my dorm room, simple, sparse, home, and I hesitated before the door, not wanting to say goodnight. Midas looked like he wanted to say something more too, but instead he gave me a nod and turned away, his cloak swishing behind him as he disappeared back into the stone halls. The second the door clicked shut, I heard it. A squeal, then another. "Shut up," I muttered, turning around. Anya and Marin were standing halfway down the corridor, pretending to dust an already pristine windowsill. Their eyes were wide, cheeks pink. "You looked cozy," Marin grinned. "He walked you back," Anya said in a sing-song voice. I flushed. "It's not like that." They exchanged a look that said it's exactly like that. "He's smiling again," Marin whispered behind her hand. "You did that." I said shut up, I muttered, but my mouth betrayed me with a small, traitorous smile. The warmth was still buzzing in my chest when I turned to head back into my room, until I nearly collided with a wall of shadows. Lucian. He loomed in the doorway like a stain of ink in the light. The warmth in my chest vanished, iced out in an instant. "Get to work," he said. "It's our day off," Anya said, stepping slightly in front of me. "Then don't block the hallway," Lucian snapped. "Move." They hesitated, then backed away, reluctantly heading toward the east wing. I stood frozen. Something about the look in Lucian's eyes made my gut twist. "Can I help you with something?" I asked. "I told you," he murmured, stepping closer. "If you ever had any needs, you were to come to me." My spine locked. "I'm fine, really, His hand brushed my shoulder, slow and deliberate. "Because I can satisfy you," he whispered, the words dripping with venom disguised as silk. I flinched back, but he didn't let up. He leaned in close, too close, and inhaled deeply, right beside my ear. His mouth curved into a smile, and when I turned to look at him, his teeth had shifted, sharper than human, his pupils blown. Mayor Grith. Something ancient, something wrong. A name that didn't belong to this century. What did you just call me?" He didn't answer. Only watched as I stumbled back into my room, one hand on the wall for balance. My heart thudded painfully beneath my ribs. Lucian didn't follow. He just smiled. The kind of smile you see on something that eats its young. Then he turned and vanished down the hall like nothing happened at all. But I felt it, the shift in the air, the danger. And for the first time since arriving at here, I didn't feel safe. I couldn't sleep, not really. Not after what Lucian said, what he called me, Mpreg. The name kept echoing in my head like a bell rung in some long-forgotten cathedral. It was familiar in a way I couldn't explain, like a memory I never had, or a song I almost remembered the words to. I tossed and turned until I was slick with sweat, my chest tight and my belly cramping with nerves. Then, that damn book. It clawed its way into my dreams again, glowing, pulsing, whispering. When I opened my eyes, the air was thick, like the castle itself was holding its breath. I got out of bed, quietly, waddled through the corridors, past the sleeping stone walls, down the spiral stair, and into the cold, musty hush of the library. My feet knew the way better than I did. And when I turned the corner, there it was, sitting on the lectern in the middle of the library, exactly where it shouldn't have been. The book. No dust on it, no chains, no name on the spine. But it was waiting. I stepped closer, heart pounding. My fingers trembled as I reached out. The second I touched it, the cover flung open, flapping like wings. The book levitated, pages fluttering, glowing blue light bursting from its core. Then the words burned across the page. Mpreg. High Wrath, first mother of the bear clans. The voice wasn't spoken aloud. It was in me. All around me. Beneath my skin. And then, the world shattered. I was no longer in the library. I stood in the middle of a mountain battlefield, bathed in twilight. The sky bled red, smoke coiled through the trees, fires roared in the distance. Grizzlies, men, women, warriors, all in part beast form, fought and bled and died. Their roars shook the ground. And there she was, Mpreg, tall and terrible and radiant. Her golden fur rippled with power. Her eyes burned like the sun. She wore armor of bone and silver, runes carved into every inch of her skin. She roared once, and the earth cracked beneath her. At her side, Midas, younger, unscarred. His voice called to her over the sound of battle. Mpreg, behind you! But it was too late. An enormous beast, part shadow, part venom, impaled her from behind. Her scream was a sound I'll never forget, even if I wanted to. The battle stilled, the bears howled, and Midas, he got to her, held her body, cried like the world had ended, because maybe, for them, it had. The fire spread, the mountain crumbled. Mpreg's chest rose once more, a final breath. Then light tore free from her body, bursting like a sun. It lifted from her ribcage and turned into a glowing streak of spirit, and flew straight into me. I screamed, woke up in the library, flat on my back, cold and shaking. My palms burned from touching the book, which had fallen closed beside me. My shirt was soaked through. My baby kicked. The air in the room pulsed. Mpreg. She wasn't a dream. She wasn't a myth. She was inside me. And if what I'd seen was real, then Midas knew exactly who I was. Or worse, he didn't.
Chapter 9. The Bear. I awoke to the sensation of being pulled, not by hand or force, but by something far more ancient, something tethered to the deepest root of my being, as if the earth itself had reached up through the marrow of my bones and yanked me toward awareness. It was him. Terry. The moment his name stirred behind my ribs, the air in the room thickened, congealing with a terrible knowing. Something was wrong. Not death. No, I would have felt that as a thunderclap. This was more delicate, more harrowing. Like a cry that had never been spoken yet found its way into the hollows of my chest all the same. I rose swiftly, sleep forgotten, body lurching toward the door with the urgency of a man possessed. I did not stop to dress, did not bother with boots or cloak, only the instinct to reach him, to find the source of the ache that rattled like wind through my ribs. But then, the shift. It came upon me like a wave crashing through a crumbling dam. The pain arrived first. Hot and undeniable, spreading through my spine and arms like fire with purpose. I gasped. No, I choked on it, staggering to the wall, my hands splaying against the stone as if ancient rock might take pity on a creature like me. My body convulsed with the transformation, cursed muscle twisting, bones groaning beneath skin that no longer felt like mine. And still the pull toward him remained. Terry. Like a name etched into the sinew of my soul. Not now, I growled, already lost to the beast who answered to blood and rage and history. I tried to fight it, Gods, I did. I dug my claws, no, my hands into the wooden frame of the dresser until it cracked apart, splinters blooming like teeth. I tore through my own chambers, the oak chair shattering beneath my stumbling step, the curtains ripped loose and the windows flung open by the force of my collapse. My roar, his name without breath, shook the corridor. Then I was no longer a man. The change overtook me fully, as it always did. My thoughts fractured, my bones lengthened and reshaped with sickening snaps. My voice fell silent and the great ragged breaths of a beast replaced it. I remember crashing through the stone halls on all fours, the thick fur of my cursed form damp with sweat, eyes blind with fury and need. Sven and Jarek leapt from their rooms, eyes wide, mouths shouting warnings I could no longer hear. Lady Astrid whispered her prayers, but no holy word could unmake what I had become. And then, the forest. It welcomed me like a grave. With a single heave of my body, I burst through the iron gates, claws carving through dirt and root, tearing across the land like a storm made flesh. Somewhere in the ruined part of my mind, I sent out a pulse. Find him, protect him, save him, and knew the others heard. I felt their responses faintly like ripples in a long, dead pond, and then blackness. As always. Later, aftermath. When the sun crept over the trees again, I was alone, naked, cold, sprawled across the ruins of the land I had ravaged. The sky above me was soft with clouds, uncaring and eternal. My body ached with the memory of violence, and my heart, still tethered to him, twisted with the knowledge that I had failed again. Failed to resist. Failed to stay human. Failed to protect what little I still dared to hope for. I walked back to the castle, shame crawling over my skin like ice worms burrowing deep beneath the flesh. The weight of my uncontrollable shift pressed heavy on my chest, reminding me of the curse that clawed at me from within. At the heavy oak door stood Lucian, draped in his black cloak, expression carved from stone, impassive as a corpse. The shadow of the black bears stretched long in him, a cruel remnant of the war we once fought. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. "How's Terry?" I demanded. "Fine," Lucian answered, but his eyes flickered dark. Night terrors. His long fingers brushed against my arm, and I recoiled, fire sparking in my glare. "Stop it, witch," I spat. His eyes flared with rage, but what came next was worse than anger. His face twisted, a grotesque mask of agony and rage. Flesh sagged and shriveled, bones cracking beneath the skin as it melted and contorted. His jaw collapsed inward, teeth grinding like shattered stone, nose flattening into a twisted stump. Eyes receded into shadowy pits, glowing faintly with an unholy black fire. Then, as if pulled back by invisible chains, his features snapped back into their usual guise, though the scars of that dark magic lingered like a curse branded upon his flesh. Lucien, once king of the Black Bear clan, rulers of shadow and sorcery, masters of the cursed magics born from blood sacrifice and ancient rites older than the mountains themselves. Their power whispered like a death chant across the wilds, feared by clans and kings alike. He was my rival, my prisoner, the last ember of a doomed dynasty broken beneath my blade. In the war-torn days when the world was young and savage, his clan wielded black magic like a plague, striking terror into the hearts of all who opposed them. But I, Midas, was the axe that shattered their reign. Lucien was captured, bound not only in iron but in chains woven of curses so old they could bind the very soul. His magic, dark and twisted, was shackled to me by the ancient penance my ancestors demanded for the blood he spilled. My wife and my son stolen from this world by his cruel hands. Now he serves me, a shadow chained and broken, yet ever dangerous. Evidence of the vengeance I have wrought and the cost I carry. His face is a battlefield, carved by torment and sorcery, a mask of rot and rage that haunts the halls as much as he haunts my mind. I am his captor. I am his judge. And yet in the darkest moments I fear he is the true master of this cursed fate. I closed the door behind me, silence pressing close. The night would bring no peace, only the whisper of old curses and the cold knowledge that the beast within me is not the only darkness waiting to consume this broken kingdom. I lay down, the weight of centuries heavy upon my chest and the bitter taste of blood and betrayal lingering on my tongue. Lucien's shadow stretched long across my soul, and I feared the day it would finally swallow me whole. The heavy door to Terry's chamber swung open before I could summon the courage to knock, and there he stood, pale as the early frost, his features drawn tight with a mixture of fear and wonder that spoke volumes in silence alone. His eyes, wild and haunted, locked onto mine with an intensity that both unsettled and commanded my attention. "Terry," I murmured. Yet he shook his head, words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "I saw it. The book, the vision. The war, the clan, Mpreg. I was there, or at least I saw it as if I were. I don't know how this could be." A shadow crossed my brow as I frowned deeply, the weight of impossibility settling like a stone within my chest, for he was human. Or so I had believed. But there was an essence about him, something beneath the surface that betrayed this truth. A scent raw and primal mingled with mine, as unmistakable as the northern winds through the ancient forest. "Come," I commanded. "We must seek out Lady Astrid, my sister, and the others in the library. They will help us unravel what this portent means." We moved swiftly through the winding corridors, cloaked in shadow and silence, mindful of Lucien's watchful presence and the poison that his cunning bred. In the sanctity of the library's ancient halls, I summoned those I trusted, calling a private gathering of the clan's closest, the few who could be counted on in such uncertain times. Sven was the first to speak. "Why are we here?" he asked. "Yeah," Jarek added with a snort. "Did you wake up in a pool of your own vomit again?" Jarek was younger and leaner, but no less dangerous, smirked from beside him. His dark hair was cropped short, eyes a piercing ice blue that missed nothing. "Shut up and listen," I said firmly, stepping forward. At my side stood Lady Astrid, my sister, tall, regal, and commanding even in silence. Her jet-black hair was pulled back into an intricate braid woven with silver threads that caught the candlelight, and her sharp green eyes glimmered. "Carn Urus Mpreg," I intoned, meaning blood ties bind the claw and heart. Terry stood beside me, eyes fixed on the rhythm of my speech, lips parted but silent. The truth settled like a stone in my gut. He had opened that book, the one written entirely in Ursgard, the language of our ancestors. If he could read it, then maybe he was more than just a stranger wandering into our cursed world. Ursgard, Terry whispered, reverence softening his tone. The tongue of the bear clans. A silence fell, thick and heavy with meaning. Jarek cracked a rare smile. Well, he's not just a pretty face after all. Sven gave a grunt of approval, and Lady Astrid's eyes shone with cautious hope. I looked at Terry, the weight of what this meant settling deep in my chest. He wasn't just an outsider or some lost soul. He was one of us, bound by blood, spirit, and the ancient curse that wove through our very bones. And suddenly, the impossible felt almost within reach. What does this mean? Lady Astrid demanded. It means he's one of us, Sven said quietly, his tone heavy with conviction. But how? I don't know, I admitted. But he's connected to Mpreg. But she died 100 years ago, Jarek said. No, Terry spoke for the first time. She didn't die. He touched his stomach lightly. She's alive, they both are. I don't know how I know, but I know. Lady Astrid's eyes widened in alarm. You mustn't do anything reckless. He's got the blood of a king running through his veins, she began. You don't know that, Jarek snapped, cutting her off. Look, immaculate or magical conception aside, how do we know this baby isn't a bastard and he's just taken advantage of us? Before he could finish, my hands were around his neck. Jarek's sputtering grew frantic as I lifted him clear off the ground, his legs dangling as he slapped weakly at my wrists, his face turning red. You ever speak against my mate again and I'll kill you, I growled. All right, let him go, Lady Astrid commanded, stepping between us. You've made your point. Jarek, rein it in. I released him and he dropped like a stone onto the floor, sputtering and shaking, glaring at me while rubbing his neck. He was right to fear me. I was his alpha, and it was my right to discipline him. He's right, Sven said cautiously. We don't know anything about you, no offense. None taken, Terry said calmly. I know it sounds crazy, but I can prove it. The room fell into stunned silence. They looked at Terry as if he'd grown another head. Terry held their gazes. The book I found, the one that glowed, it was written entirely in Ursgard. I read it like it was written in plain English. That's how I saw Mpreg, her death, your battle. Midas, I saw you. You had a vision, Lady Astrid breathed. The old magic is waking up. I thought it was a dream, Terry said, his fingers absently brushing his stomach. But it wasn't. I know it wasn't. And if I could read that book, maybe I can do more. Maybe Mpreg's soul, her blood, it's in me now. And this baby, he swallowed. This baby might be the last heir. Jarek opened his mouth again, but one glance from me shut it. The room was no longer filled with doubt. It buzzed with tension, a quiet reverence and fear. Something ancient was stirring, and Terry stood at the center of it all. The curse? Lady Astrid whispered. Lucien must never know. Maybe he already does, Sven muttered, arms crossed tightly over his chest. What do you mean? She asked, snapping her gaze to him. I didn't answer immediately. My mind turned sharply to the moment Lucien had helped me dress, when he'd slipped the cloak over my shoulders. At the time I'd felt it, something slippery and cold brushing against my skin. Magic, and come to think of it, why had I kept it on all this time? A strange chill slid down my spine. I reached up and pinched the edge of the cloak between my fingers, brought it close and inhaled. Black sage. My eyes widened, and with a snarl I ripped the cloak from my shoulders. The moment it hit the ground, it ignited, flames roaring up in a tower of violet fire. The group backed up instinctively, but none drew weapons. I stood tall, bare-chested and fuming, glaring at the burning heap like it had personally betrayed me. Naked as the day I was born. No one blinked. Lady Astrid didn't even flinch. Sven looked mildly bored. Jarek muttered something about fire damage to the stone floors. Except Terry. He made a strangled squeaking noise and spun around so fast he nearly tripped over himself. Oh my God, could you... just pants? Maybe? He clapped a hand over his eyes, face flaming as red as the fire on the cloak. I turned to him, a brow arched. You've seen worse. Not that up close, Jarek chuckled darkly. He's blushing. How precious. You could have warned me, Terry mumbled, still covering his eyes. Lady Astrid tilted her head at me. That cloak. It was laced with binding spells, wasn't it? I nodded once. Lucien, that bastard's been cloaking my senses, my strength. Probably listening in too. Which means, Sven growled, he knows about the baby. Terry finally peeked between his fingers, wide-eyed. Then we're in serious trouble, aren't we? No, I said, stepping toward him and gently placing a hand over his. Now we finally know who the enemy is. And it's time I stopped playing by his rules. Terry stared up at me, his eyes still flustered, still trying very hard not to look down. Could you at least find a towel or something? I gave a slow, wolfish grin. As you wish, little flame. Behind me, the last of the cloak turned to ash. Lucien would pay for this. Starting now. You can't go up against Lucien, not like this. Not while the curse still binds you, Lady Astrid said. I won't wait, I said. He's already twisted his claws into this household, into him. My gaze flicked to Terry, still flushed. His hands now dropped to his sides, but his posture stiff with worry. Midas, Lady Astrid said softly, using my name like a tether. You can't. Not yet. My jaw clenched. Terry glanced between us, brows drawing in. What curse? He asked. I mean, I know some of it, but no one's really explained. Sven crossed his arms, stone-faced. The curse of Ursa. Born of war. Blood. Treachery. Lady Astrid nodded, taking over. It was cast by the last shaman of the Black Bear clan, Lucien's father, during the final siege of the Bear Wars. He died before he could complete it, but Lucien, Lucien finished it with his own hands. That's how he survived the purge, how he still lives. It was vengeance, I said bitterly. A punishment wrapped in poison. Every night when the sun sets, the curse takes me, rips me out of my own skin. I shift whether I will it or not. I lose control. Terry's expression faltered. And your mind? Gone, I admitted. Until dawn. He's feral, Astrid said grimly. And when he returns, he wakes cold and empty like a soul dragged back from death. That's why you see him so hollow. I thought it was the drinking, Terry muttered. That too, Sven grunted. But surely there's a way to break it, Terry pressed. If it was cast, it can be uncast, right? Astrid's gaze dropped. We've tried. Blood rites, shaman's fire, memory binding. Every solution ended in failure or madness. There is no known way to break it, I said. Lucian made sure of that. His magic was forged with death and anchored in blood. My wife's blood. My son's. Terry's breath caught, hand drifting to his belly. And now he wants to finish the job, Astrid said, or to take your child, maybe both. I stepped closer to Terry, unable to stop myself. I will not let him touch you, not while I breathe. Then I'll help you break it. Terry looked up at me, vulnerable and defiant all at once. There is no breaking it, I growled. Only surviving it. But something in Terry's gaze didn't waver. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was choosing to stand beside me, and God's help, Lucian, because that gave me hope. Hope was more dangerous than any curse. Chapter 10. The Bear. The door exploded inward, wood splintering like bone. I threw my body in front of Terry, arms outstretched, shielding him as Lucian stepped through the wreckage like a shadow cut loose from hell. His eyes were pitch black, his mouth a jagged grin that stretched too wide for any human face. The flickering candlelight made his features writhe, cheekbones folding inward, jawline stretching like melting wax, and his teeth. Gods, his teeth were too many, too sharp, glinting like obsidian. I knew it, Lucien hissed, his voice like smoke curling through a dying fire. I smelled it on him the moment I laid eyes on his wretched little form, the key, the blood of Mpreg. You thought you could keep this from me. He raised a hand, fingers tipped with curved talons, blackened with rot. Once I kill him, he crooned. Once I rip the child from his belly and drink the marrow of your failure, I'll be free. Protect Terry, I roared, the shift overtaking me like a tidal wave of fire and bone. My body convulsed, muscles tearing and rebuilding, claws erupting from my hands, spine lengthening into a curved ridge of plated fury. My heart screamed as fur erupted from my skin, ribs cracked outward, reshaping into the terrible form I bore every night. But this time, I fought it, number I needed to protect him. Beside me, Lady Astrid let out a thunderous cry, her body bursting into a massive silver bear, her hackles raised and her eyes molten with fury. She lunged at Lucian with a snarl, teeth flashing as they collided with a sound like an avalanche crashing through steel. Terry, I growled, half man, half beast. Sven was already there. He swept Terry into his arms with shocking gentleness, cradling him bridal style, careful not to jostle the precious life inside him. "I've got him," he barked. Terry's terrified eyes found mine. I met them, gold to green, beast to beauty, and then the door to the adjacent room slammed shut behind them. The oak groaned as Lucian's magic slammed against it, twice, 3 times, but it held. Enchanted, ancient, blessed by the old mothers, it would hold, for now. But my body, my curse. I dropped to my knees, snarling, claws digging gouges in the stone as I fought to hold on. My vision split, everything swimming in red and black. Rage coursed through me, a hunger I barely understood. I wanted to rip, to kill, to destroy. No, no, don't lose control. Don't become the monster again. A voice whispered deep in my bones, then don't fight it. I froze. Don't fight, let go, not of yourself, but of fear. Let instinct guide you. Let the bear rise. And so I did. I gave in. My roar split the rafters, my bones cracked and finished shifting, and the beast, my beast, rose to its full height, monstrous and golden-furred, battle-scarred and vengeful. Lucien shrieked as Lady Astrid slammed him back into a wall, blood spraying from his shoulder. He retaliated with a burst of dark fire striking her side. She stumbled but didn't fall. Then I charged. My paws hit the ground like hammers. I slammed into Lucian with the full force of my ancient weight, crashing him through a pillar. The stones cracked around us. We rolled, claws slashing, jaws snapping. He shifted too, not into a bear, but into something fouler, darker. A black beast twisted by magic with too many limbs and snarling faces flickering beneath his skin. He raked my side, tearing through fur and flesh. I roared, bit down on his shoulder, tasting ash and rot. He screamed. Lady Astrid pounced again, pinning one of his twisted limbs. "Now, Midas!" I slammed both paws into his chest, cracking bone. "Stay away from my mate," I bellowed. Lucien writhed, laughter turning into a howl. "You'll never be rid of me. I am the curse." And I realized then, maybe he was right. He was the curse, and it was time I buried it. Lucian's laugh cracked like thunder, hollow and wild, echoing through the shattered remains of the great hall. "I am the curse," he roared again, as if saying it would make it true. "You cannot destroy what's been woven into your blood. I am forever." He surged up from the rubble, limbs grotesquely bending backward, his form unraveling into black smoke and coiling tendrils. Faces flickered beneath his skin, some human, some monstrous, all screaming. Astrid staggered beside me, her silver fur singed and matted with blood. "He's breaking," she growled, breath ragged. "Whatever's holding him together is unraveling," I finished, golden eyes narrowing. Lucian let out a sound that wasn't a snarl, wasn't a scream, it was wrong. His head jerked at an angle, bones popping. Then again, his mouth split wide, too wide, fanged and black as tar. "I will wear your skin, Midas, yours and his. I'll birth myself anew through your precious mate." That was it. I charged, earth shaking beneath each monstrous paw. I slammed into him with a deafening roar, claws embedding into his warped hide. He clawed back, scratching through my fur, but I didn't stop. I sank my teeth into his throat. I bit down. He thrashed wildly, screeching black blood pouring down my jaws like oil. He snapped at me with twisted jaws, but Astrid lunged from behind, clamping down on one of his arms, twisting and pulling. We held him there, me at his throat, Astrid at his limb, until I heard it. Snap, his neck. Lucian went still for a breath. Then his body convulsed violently, once, twice, before erupting in a detonation of shrieking shadow. His flesh melted, evaporating into thick black mist. The air turned sour with burning sage and death. The windows shattered, light sucking from the room as if swallowed by the void. A vortex of darkness spiraled where he stood, swirling upward like a scream made manifest. You've only delayed the inevitable. You cannot kill what you are. I roared back at the spiraling mist, full of every clawed scar and pain the curse had ever carved into my bones. I am not you. And with one last pulse, the mist shuddered and exploded, shooting into the rafters, scattering in 1,000 directions like ink dropped into water. Then silence. The cursed wind died. Astrid limped to my side, her bare form ragged but still standing. I stood on shaking limbs, my golden fur soaked in blood and soot. And then I shifted back, naked, panting, my body steaming with leftover magic. The remnants of Lucian's curse finally broke and faded like smoke across my skin. Astrid followed suit, wrapping herself in her cloak as she collapsed to her knees. "Is it done?" she whispered. I turned slowly, eyes scanning the charred, ruined hall. No body, no shadow, no heartbeat. And then the faintest sound came. A knock. From the sealed door. I hurried forward, still limping from the wounds, and threw it open. Sven stood there, his bulk bracing the wall, sword drawn. Terry, pale and shaking, looked up at me, eyes wide, hands trembling on his belly. "I heard it," he whispered. "Lucian is gone," I said. And the moment the words left my mouth, the castle itself exhaled. Dust settled, the torches flickered higher, and far above us I swore I heard the wind sing. The curse was broken. But something older had awakened in its place, and it lived inside him. The door opened and Sven rushed out. "Crap, crap, we need a doctor!" "Why, what happened?" "Terry went into labor." The world froze, my heart kicked once, twice, and then galloped into a frenzy. I shoved past Sven, barreling through the smoke-tinged corridors. The scent of ash still lingered from Lucien's destruction, but beneath it, Terry. I could smell his panic, his pain, and the sharp metallic sting of blood. "No," I growled under my breath. "Not now, not like this." I burst into the room, chest heaving, and there he was. Terry, hunched over in the bed, soaked in sweat, his hands clutching his belly like it was the only thing tethering him to the earth. Maren knelt at his side, whispering softly, while Anya furiously boiled water near the hearth. Everything was in disarray, but Terry's eyes locked onto mine the second I stepped in. "Midas," he breathed. "I'm here," I said, dropping to my knees beside him, taking his trembling hand in mine. "I'm here. You're not alone. I've got you." His eyes welled up. "It hurts. I don't know if I can do this." "You can," I said. You're the strongest person I've ever known, Terry. You fought for your life. You faced Lucian's darkness and didn't flinch. You're not broken, you're whole, and you're not doing this by yourself." His lip quivered, and for the first time I saw him believe it. Lady Astrid entered behind me, sweat streaking her brow, her robe tied hastily over a linen shift. "The healer's on her way," she announced, "but we may not have time." "How far apart are the contractions?" she asked Maren. 2 minutes, Maren said grimly. Astrid nodded once, then turned to me. "Midas, this is it." I nodded, never letting go of Terry's hand. Another contraction hit, and he cried out, his body curling inward. I held him, whispering in Ursgard, letting my voice settle around him like a shield. "Carnaras, Maergrith, blood ties bind the claw and heart." He gripped me tighter. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Always." The castle was quiet now. The war drums had long since ceased, folded into memory. The smoke from Lucian's black magic no longer clung to the rafters. Instead, sunlight bathed the stones of Ursgard in a golden hush, and soft laughter rose from the nursery just beyond my chamber. My chamber. Our chamber. I stood at the threshold watching them. Terry curled on the furs near the window, moonlight brushing his face. His eyes were closed, his breathing even, one arm slung protectively over the small bundle nestled against his chest. Our son, my son, Eirekr, born of a miracle, born of curse and broken fate, born of love. He had Terry's lashes, impossibly long, and a nose that crinkled when he stretched, already stubborn as the mountains themselves. But he had my golden eyes, the eyes of a king, ancient and unblinking, carrying the full weight of the Grizzly line. I had believed I was unworthy, that the curse had made me monster, not man. That love was a luxury for those untouched by rot. But Terry shattered that. He saw me when I was all jagged pieces and ash. He had every reason to run, to hate me for the beast I became, the kingdom I'd let fall, the lifetimes of blood on my hands. But he stayed, he laughed, he argued. He touched me like I was something good. And now, he slept, heart steady beside mine, a crown of wildflowers woven into his curls by Lady Astrid herself, a mate of the old ways, a bearer of sacred blood. And me, I knelt beside them, slowly lowering myself to my side, careful not to wake the baby. His tiny fingers curled around one of mine, and something inside me cracked. Not broken this time, but healed. Terry stirred slightly and opened one eye, sleepy and beautiful. "You're awake," he murmured. "I always am. Just in case you need me." "You're a sap," he whispered with a smirk, brushing our son's cheek. "You are my mate," I said softly, "and he is my life. There is nothing else now." Terry was quiet for a long time. I used to think I'd be alone forever, that no one would want me, not really. Not once they saw everything. I didn't even name him Midas. I was so sure I'd give him away, that I'd fail him, that I was just disposable. My heart twisted. "You were never disposable," I said. "You were my second chance. You were our salvation, both of you." Terry smiled at me. He believed it now. I could see it in the way his shoulders loosened, in the way he leaned into my chest. He no longer flinched from love. Outside, the winds shifted, the mountain's breath exhaling peace for the first time in a century. The curse had ended with Lucian's death, yes. But the true healing came after. We would raise him together, our boy, the future of the clans, the next true king. And if the old gods dared to touch him, they'd have to go through a grisly father with nothing left to lose. The end.